Our next reader received his MFA in creative writing from the Ohio State University in 2000. His writing has appeared in Crab Orchard Review, Hayden's Ferry Review, and Cassette from My Ex, an anthology of personal essays on relationships in the era of the mixtape. His online projects have been featured on Boing Boing, Metafilter, and Product Hunt. You can find him on Twitter at Avoision, or at his website, avoision.com, a personal blog he's updated every single day since July 2002. I know. Please give a warm welcome and a congratulations to Felix Jung.
Hi. I'm going to read a couple things, one short essay and a couple of poems. Don't worry, my stuff is usually pretty short, mostly because my attention span is just awful. So I wish I could, write novels, but I just don't have. A page is probably the max that I really do.
Please talk into the microphone.
Oh, sure. So the first thing is going to be an essay, and it's actually from the Cassette from My Ex anthology, which Andrew's in as well. And we were just, the writers were asked to talk a little bit about the mixtape, which at the time was a kind of nostalgic thing, and now is almost like this artifact. And more like a portal to a prior time, and in my case, adolescence. The essay is called Felix plus Zintra plus Queenswork. I was an Asian guy with long hair who was into heavy metal. She was a Latvian dancer who liked to chain smoke camels. We met in Mr. Dennis's orchestra class in North Central High School. We both played violin, and we both had unusual names, Felix and Zintra. The two of us lived fairly close to one another in neighborhoods off of Spring Mill Road on the north side of Indianapolis. Between our houses and the bottom of a steep hill, there was a favorite graffiti spot everyone called The Wall. Kids would tag the stretch of wall mercilessly, and every so often some adult would get fed up and cover the entire thing in a coat of white paint. One day in the spring of 1990, I drove by and saw that the entire wall had been wiped clean. While I wasn't a serious troublemaker, I knew an opportunity when I saw one. A few phone calls and a few nights later, under cover of darkness, my friends and I let loose on what was essentially a blank canvas. In the movies, couples would take a knife and carve their initials into a tree to declare their love to the world. To me, I was doing the same using spray paint and stone. I wrote out our names in large strokes, Felix plus Zin, encircling everything within the sloppy outline of a heart. And then, in the blank square right next to our names, I spray painted the name of my favorite heavy metal band, Queensway. Like me, I knew that Zintra had to drive past that wall in Spring Mill at least once or twice a day. The thing I forgot about was that, like me, she had parents who would also drive by that wall at least once or twice a day. At the time, there weren't a whole lot of couples named Felix and Zin in the greater Indianapolis region. There weren't a whole lot of guys named Felix, for that matter. I doubt I won any points with the parents that year, hers or mine. A few months later, in the summer of 1990, she went away for several weeks to a Latvian summer camp, Three Rivers, Wisconsin. We made promises to one another to send letters, and she left me with two things, her address and a mixtape. During the days, I read the letters she sent and while away the time, keeping an eye out for the mailman. She told me stories about how hard it was to sneak cigarettes and how she plotted with the other students to buy beer and wine coolers. The camp held a dance, she wrote me, but it was lame because she had no one to slow dance with. One of my favorite letters was signed with a bit of her lipstick, where she had kissed a space in the paper next to her name. Whenever I felt overcome with loneliness, I'd break out that letter and kiss the spot that she had kissed. By the end of that summer, it was a small miracle there was any lipstick left on the thing. During the nights, I'd listen to her mixtape incessantly, in bed with the kind of sadness and yearning that comes from being 16 years old. I'd play each side in the pitch black and miss my girlfriend. When the tape stopped, I'd flip it over and play the other side. I'd repeat this over and over, play, flip, until I fell asleep. While the songs played, I imagined her in a dimly lit auditorium, sitting alone against the wall, and in the quiet spaces between the songs, I tried very hard not to imagine the many Latvian boys who lurked in the shadows nearby, waiting to ask her to slow dance. After her return from camp, things weren't quite the same between us. The extended absence had made things unfamiliar and made us strangers to one another. A few weeks after she got back, she broke up with me. The mixtape I had been given that summer stayed at my bedside, and my nightly ritual stayed the same. It would have been easier to burn the tape or throw the thing away, but listening to the songs, all I cared about was wallowing in my unhappiness. All I cared about was seeing how low I could get, to try sinking to the very depths of my sadness and to stay there as long as possible. I spent the next year feeling heartbroken and sorry for myself. I filled an entire green notebook complete with a Queensryche bumper sticker on the cover, with a volume of terrible poetry. Many of my poems were about love and loss, all of my poems rhymed. It's been years since Zintra gave me that tape, and though I no longer live in Indianapolis, I still visit my parents, who live in the same house I grew up in on Spring Mill Road. From time to time, I'll find myself driving along that stretch of hill, and always slow by the wall out of necessity and nostalgia. Rounding the curves, I remember the adrenaline of that night with my friends, the scrub pavement underfoot, the headlights of oncoming cars cresting the hill, the smell and stain of the aerosol cans. If you were to cut through that wall, you would see a small map of time, the handiwork of countless authors and signatures. Somewhere underneath the rings of paint and names of couples long past, there's a thin layer that I helped create. Somewhere for a brief moment, I made our names visible to the world. To this day, the wall is still sometimes clean, sometimes covered in tags. It is still victim to the whims of adolescents and adults. It's still standing in the same spot near the bottom of a steep hill on Spring Mill Road, as permanent and as fleeting as any tree. These poems are not from that notebook, by the way. It's from the Motley Crue notebook. So this first one I've read before, but I haven't really read it very much in public. And I was thinking a lot about heavy metal, and in particular the sort of crazy rock star lifestyle, and particularly the drummers of these bands. And they're getting on. It's around that time where they're getting older, and just trying to imagine the demise of people that were once living that kind of a crazy lifestyle. And this poem is called Obituaries for Heavy Metal Drummers. The papers always print the old archival photographs, back when they were younger, mouths wide, skin taut across their cheeks. When I see their black and white faces, I think, please let it be an overdose. A bubble in a heroin, a line of badly cut cocaine. Perhaps a truck colliding with a tour bus, a jealous lover's gun, incineration due to pyrotechnic miscalculations. May their ends be full with motion, a single-engine Cessna on a snowy night, racing motorcycles in the rain, crushed to bits beneath an avalanche of Marshall stags. Let it be a violent death, brutish, quick, a public mess that echoes. Anything is better than the lazy crawl of age and time, of sunny days that brush their light across a faded wall, when on a random Wednesday afternoon, their lonely ticking hearts resist a beat and skip and simply stop. This next one is kind of a weird one, mostly because I have a fear of heights, and in particular, it manifests sometimes weirdly in elevators, of all places. So this one is called Elevators Like God Make No Promises. Especially in certain buildings. I have no faith in architects, no trust in beams of steel or wood. If steady winds can push a mountain back to dust, how long until a wall of brick comes tumbling down? The ground does not forgive. It never needs to give more than it takes. Acidic rains eat statues year by year. The names on gravestones smudge away until the weeds and moss reclaim what rightfully is theirs. Sometimes electric wires short, a fire burns cold concrete black, sends each atomic piece of carbon back into the dirt. How can a building never tire of standing up when all the world demands return? I hate the leap of faith it takes to step between an elevator's doors, this metal box that going up comes down but not the way it should. When I can touch a button and suspend the laws of gravity, how can I possibly ascend from floor to floor without some sense of reservation? How much did I eat for lunch? How many books inside my backpack? Will it help to hold my breath, or does that extra air just make me heavier? What if the cable snaps and drops me down the elevator shaft to crash into the basement? I admit I'd scream. Who wouldn't? If the movies are correct, the seconds of that fall will feel, at least to me, like an eternity. No architect, regardless of his skill, can accurately guess the choices I will make. To wait, to take the stairs, there's too much randomness to calculate. If I attempt to raise myself in rising up, I am acknowledging that failure means descent. The devil was an angel once. If he can fall with wings, what chance have I? Who says I'm any different? This one comes from, I was inspired by Neil Gaiman's The Sandman, a really fantastic graphic novel, and there's one volume in particular called World's End, and if you haven't read it, it's really great. This one in particular is great. It's like the story within a story, and it brought up the concept, it introduced the concept to me of an air burial, which was something that I had not really encountered before, where instead of a body being interred into the ground, it's disseminated through the air. So this is called Instructions for Tibetan Air Burial, and it starts with a quotation. The vultures, about 50 of them altogether, ambled slowly up the hill and took to the air with evident difficulty, overfed as they are from this daily ritual. What you see in front of you is only a body. Take your knife and begin with the feet, the toes. Oranges never cry when you peel their skin. The apples feel no pain when you remove their flesh. This is not a violence, but a returning. Open the body like a book, but do not succumb to the smell. Overcome it, as the mourners must overcome their grief. Yours is not the heaviest burden today. Should your nose begin to weep, breathe through your mouth. At every moment, remember you are breathing. Lift the ribs, the part that many call a cage, as though the body itself were not a cage. Remove each lung and open it to air. Take down the walls of each intestine brick by brick. Let the stomach feed something other than itself. Work slowly with the heart. Its size and weight can make it difficult to hold. Ignore the people who are watching. Keep your eyes upon the eyes below you. Notice how your living, pulsing hand reaches to hold the dead and empty hand, even as your knife begins the severing. Two more. This one is very short and very odd. I was thinking about, I'm not sure if I'm going to get this right, there's a myth that involved Tithonus, who was made immortal, but then just aged. And so I was thinking, like, the gods are just such bastards, you know, like, there's these awful things, and how we're sort of cursed with the things that we want. And so this is called Ever After. When the gods decide to punish us, they grant us our requests. Tithonus was given life eternal, but denied eternal youth. When we hope for love, we're given it, and I can think of nothing worse. Love is the imperfect gift, and this the price that one of us must leave and the other one must watch. I'm really a happy person. I really know where that came from. The last one I have is a found poem, and this came from a book that I was reading a while back about time and how Greeks and Romans used ways to measure time, water clocks and that sort of a thing, and sundials tend to have inscriptions on them, and in the back there's this big list of different inscriptions. I'm like, oh, this is really fun. And so the idea of a found poem is you can take things and basically rearrange them. It's like the laziest way to do writing, right? Someone else does all the words and you just kind of mix it around a little bit. And so all of these, the fun part I think is that all of these come from a sundial somewhere, so you can imagine it either as multiple voices or a singular voice. Inscriptions on sundials. Passerby, stop, look, and get the hell out of here. I have seen nothing last forever under the sun. O time, devourer of things, O sun, king of kings, only you can prove that I am useful. Let others tell of storms and showers, idly mark the bright hours. It is light that makes a shadow. Nobody looks at me when the sun is not there. O light, I hope for thee in this darkness. Let this hour be favorable. Devote the other to leisure, devote this one to work. Rest after work. Any hour can go to my friends. Use them, don't count them, they won't come back. It is later than you think. Seize the day. Each one wounds, the last one kills. One will give what the other has refused. One of these will be your last. Spring does not last forever. Life goes and still it always looks the same. Time is short, do not be late. Do not forget to live. Thank you.